Welcome to the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles, the podcast dedicated to the commercial food and gluten repair industry. My name is Pat Finley. I'm a lead master certified technician at General Parts Group and a certified Spencer trainer. Our goal is to shine a light on what we believe to be one of the most interesting and rewarding industries a field service technician can work in. We love the work we do, and we are glad you're here listening to this podcast. In this episode, we feature Gary Beaver. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Commercial Kitchen Chronicles podcast. I am coming to you live from a hotel room in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. I'm up here for AutoSham training for the week, so I'm having some fun. Looks like Rich is from a new location today, and we have very special guest Gary Beaver. If you can't tell from Gary's shirt, he works for Red, so he works for Matt that was on last week, and we were talking to Matt, and he said, "Hey, I got a guy I'd love to have on. He's got a pretty cool story." So we reached out to Gary, and it kind of just worked out. So thanks for coming on, Gary.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And just to make it clear, Gary went out of his way to make sure everybody watching knows that he works for Red.
So I got to be a kid for like 5 minutes. With a name like Gary Beaver, you probably had it pretty rough, like from middle school and high school, didn't you?
Oh, I got called a whole lot of names.
I was like, he told me your name. I was like, this isn't serious, right? Like, I almost asked, and I was like, I won't do it to you, but you're a young guy, so I figure you get it. So probably can't phase you any more than you probably had it. So what's going on, man?
Not too much, just working a lot, having fun.
That's the story of life, man. Work, and have fun when you can.
Word.
Even better when you do both at the same time, though.
Oh yeah. There's good days, there's bad days. Some days are better than others, that's for sure. Rich is enjoying a little PTO, so he's visiting his family, his parents. So.
Yep. Down in Florida, visiting some family. My kids are on spring break, so took our PTO to come down. Some of my PTO to come down while they were on spring break and hang out and whatnot.
It's always a good time. Get away.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a little cold back home, but probably not what I'm dealing with. I think it's supposed to snow Friday morning here, so.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, I'm over snow. So, Gary, couple things. How old are you?
25.
25. So we do this young gun segment. We like to highlight the guys that are like 25 and under. It's not a strict age thing. And I was pretty sure Matt said you were 25, but sometimes bosses they don't remember everything. So, but he said, you've been killing it for him. I think he said you're a lead tech for that market. So, you're the go-to guy for a lot of stuff. So that's really cool to do. But we like to highlight the young guys. Yeah, for 25, killing it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's goals I want to have for my son. He's 21, and by the time he's 25, I hope he's got that title too. So that's really cool. So, let's get into how you got started in the skilled trades. I know a little bit about your history, but just give everybody like a little rundown. Give them like the dime store show or whatever of how you got into trades and how you ended up, at Red.
So I originally planned to try and go to college at some point, and in the meantime, of being in high school, my dear buddy Jim, who's a electrician and HVAC tech for the National Park Service, he retired last year. He talked me into getting into the trades. He was like, "Oh, it's so great." He was like, "Just go to VOTEC. It's free in high school and see where it takes you." So I went in there for a electrical class in high school. And when I graduated out of that program, I had my journeyman's card. And that was all fine and dandy, but I found out real quick just having your journeyman's card doesn't mean jack diddly in the real world. You sit there and try and get a job, and everyone's like, "Oh, you don't have 5 years experience. We don't want to touch you." And finally got a job working for a local HVAC company doing generators and stuff like that. Pissed off the wrong guy at one point in time. And needless to say, I got kicked off of the electrical team because I called him out on his bullcrap and got stuck with a plumber who absolutely hated my guts for the 5 months that I worked with him because I annoyed the living daylights out of him. So I then quit because he hated me. He begged me to come back, and I went to work for a McDonald's group as an in-house technician. Worked for them for right around 3 years, and then they fired my coworker, and we're planning on getting more stores. So I had like over 10 stores to myself, and they wanted me to do everything from painting the outside of the building to walk-in freezers to fryers to grills, everything to do with the store, maintaining everything. So I ended up getting pretty frustrated with that. I had a list that was 3 pages long every week to try and stay on top of, and you could never stay on top of it. And then I had management going, well, you're not getting your stuff done. You need to do better. It's like I'm doing the best that I can with one lonesome soul doing tile work all the way to fryers. And got fed up with it, got fed up with not getting paid enough and getting work, crazy hours. And then they bumped me to their pay scale that was equivalent to being salary. So they took away OT from me and just said, oh, you're salary now. You don't get OT. And
No.
I was like, all right, cool. I'll take that $2 an hour raise and I'll tell y'all to kick rocks. And so I ended up coming to work for Matt.
Sweet.
Good
How long
story.
you been there at Red?
I've been with Red for a little over 3 years.
Nice. So it seems like that's a recurring theme, these in-house guys, I mean, they are asked to do literally everything under the sun. I mean, you're patching curbs, you're painting curbs, you're painting the building, you're fixing doors, you're fixing the leaky sink. I mean, if there's something that needs fixed, you're doing it. It seems like some guys can handle that variety and can handle that workload, and some guys just can't do it.
Yes. I don't get it for the life of me. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I'm like, nah, I ain't doing all that. You know what I mean? Not for bottom pay, because in-house guys seem to always get the low end of the pay for any type of similar work. You're not getting any benefits that you can't get anywhere else. I don't see any reason for it. Like, we got a customer that it hired recently their own in-house maintenance guy, and I use it in air quotes because when I went up to change a contactor at the condensing unit, which I told him that's what I had to do, he asked me why I had to go on the roof, but we're not going to get into that. But you walk in there and he's bagging orders and taking them out to people's cars, and I'm like, you're in-house maintenance, I'm working on your ice machine while you're bagging orders. Like, I don't know, just you ain't getting me to do all that. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a wild in-house things can be wild. I've seen some that's they actually do repairs, just with equipment, and then other times, like you said, man, they want them to do anything. If they don't have any work to do, they're cooking food, and it's like, man, that's a wild ride. But they lean on those guys, do all that stuff, and like you said, they pay them bare minimum, and when they ask for money, they'll give them a little bit, dangle that carrot, and then finally, like you said, when it's too much, oh, we'll just make you salary, because guys think, oh, they see that end of the year number and they think it's a big deal until they realize, oh, now it's salary, I don't get overtime, and they're just going to work to live a dog crap out of you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Salary looks good until you realize, well, there's no overtime, and now I'm gone 80 hours a week. So
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So at Red, do you do everything like refrigeration, hot side, HVAC? Do you do it all then?
I do some oh my goodness, some cold side, mostly do hot side, but I do both.
Nice. So what's your favorite thing to work on right now?
I really like working on turbo chefs and Mary chefs. They're like booster ovens.
Yeah. Oh yeah. High speed ovens. So they got
high-speed
a
ovens.
microwave circuit and convection circuit. So I was not expecting that one. Most people hate working on those, to be honest.
You like working on those, Pat?
I don't mind them. I mean, I don't work on enough to be proficient at it. So, I lack a little bit of knowledge on them. So sometimes I got to really look for an answer, or I got to call tech support or reach out to a friend. But we don't do enough of them to be really proficient at it. I like them. I think they're cool, but it's got that microwave element. So you got to be on your game and you got to know what you're doing for sure.
That's one of the things I enjoy about it is, you actually have to use your meter and get in there and start testing stuff and know what you're looking for. If you don't know what you're looking for, you're not going to find the answer to your problem.
Yeah, the mags kill me because they can test good and still be bad. I'm like,
still be bad. Yeah.
It's the wildest thing. Like you test it, and like, oh, the mag's good, and like just pull the mag. You pull it, like, oh, the mag's bad, but it tested good. It's a weird thing, man.
Yep.
My microwave knowledge is pretty limited. Never had any formal training. Well, actually, never really had any formal training on them, but I'll get in there. I don't say no too often until I get into trouble. But I
You
mean,
start saying a lot more than no.
but I think that's what separates the good, the good from the average tech is you're willing to take on anything, but you also got to understand that you know when to reach out for help, you know who to reach out for help, or you know where to find information.
Yeah.
So I know you said you worked on like Garland grills. I mean, you're just pretty much out there. Just if they put it in front of you, you're gonna take a look at it, huh?
I'll take a swing at it, and usually I hit the ball something most of the time. there are those few times that you go in on a Garland grill and it's giving an error code that has absolutely nothing to do with what it should.
Yeah.
It's like you'll get a comms error and it's like nothing to do with the motor speed board or the controller or the actuator. Like, how in the world can that be?
Yeah, I'm in training this week, and it's wild because I work on this particular line all the time, and I don't really have problems with it. But I hadn't been to factory training in probably 10 years, so I needed the refresher and that kind of stuff. And it's like trying to not when we're in the labs, I want to jump in there and just fix it, like it's work, and I can't do it because I've got some guys that are not as experienced on it, and they really got to work through it. So I'm like sitting back just watching them. It's like I feel like I'm training people, and I feel like I'm like in the way, or I'm just like it drives me nuts. It's just slowing down and let them get their hands on it, and get interacting with it and stuff. So it's been a wild week.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I mean, lab stuff's weird though because it's not. I mean, they try to simulate real world stuff, but it's not real world stuff. You know what I mean? They can't possibly save all kinds of broken parts, spend the time to put the part in there and have you diagnose it. Now, some of it they can, but most of it's just like a pulled off connector or something like that. It's weird. It's fun, but so have you done a lot of formal training there with Red or in a past life or anything?
So I've been to. This was before Red. I went to an AVO class, which is like electrical safety. I was required to do that at McDonald's before I could touch any equipment, really.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to the Garland class. I've been to Frymaster classes. I've been to trying to think. I think I've been to a Turbo Chef. I've been to a Manitowoc. I've been to a Heatcraft. There's probably a few more that I'm forgetting, but there's been a few I've been to.
Nice. What's your favorite part about this industry?
Probably the change of pace. It's never the exact same thing. It's always something different, and I enjoy something different. I like puzzles, and I feel like the vast majority of this industry is a puzzle. So if you can see it as a game, you're always having fun at work. And so I see every single call as a puzzle and as a game.
Nice.
That's a good. Yeah, that's a great way to look at it, man. Like I always see that the guys that are really good at this are guys that enjoy a challenge and don't want to do the same thing every day, because then they can really dive into it and focus on it. The guys that want to do the same thing every day aren't really the guys that are going to be, they can be good, but they're not going to be, your top tier tech, the tech that is going to take on the crazy stuff and do the one offs and the weird stuff. So,
yeah. The one thing that gets me is like all the young guys that come in the industry, they're like, I don't want to do it unless I get paid more. It's like, that's not how it works. You learn how to do it before you get paid more. And once you learn how to do it, that's when you're worth the money. It drives me nuts when I hear someone young going, oh, I don't want to touch it. It's like, oh, come on.
So how young are these young guys that you're seeing? Because I mean, you're 25, and like to me, if somebody walked in at 25, I'd be like, yo, that's a young dude right there working in our industry, because we don't see anybody hardly remotely young. So how young are you seeing people?
My age.
Okay.
20 to 25. I had a apprentice with me one year. Sadly, he decided to move on and do other things, but he was 16. So,
holy smokes!
So, yeah.
Have you had to train anybody older than you yet?
Yes, I have.
It's pretty
How does
awkward,
that
ain't it?
go?
It is awkward. We had one guy that worked with us for a while that he was older than me and kind of seemed to act like he knew a whole lot more than he did, and it was kind of fun to sit there and be like, "I told you so," and
Mm.
he'd get a little pissy.
Well, I mean, it's all in how they treat you, though. I mean, some of those guys, if they're willing to learn and listen to you and have respect, it's one thing. But when they try coming off arrogant and like you don't know what you're doing because they're older than you, they've been doing it this long and you've been doing it this long, it doesn't get them anywhere. And then when it comes,
No.
when they do mess up, it's like you're at that point where like, well, I'm gonna make you pay for it, so I'm gonna give you a hard time about it, and that never goes well.
Yeah.
What gets me is when people are like, "Oh, I know what I," they want to try and work their way out of how to do something that they don't want to do. Because
Mhm.
it's like it's going to be a crappy situation, like like a nasty fry at that one restaurant that everyone knows that they don't want to go work on, and so they're like, "Oh, I don't know how to do that," and then they're like, "Oh, well, then you can go so and so to get experience on." They're like, "Oh, I know how to do that." It's like, okay, so 3 days ago you didn't know how to do it, and then today you know how to do it. Okay, well, next time you get to get a try at it.
So we got a
Yeah.
pretty
See
good
that?
question. Go ahead, Rich.
No, I was just gonna say that's just the thing that I don't ever understand. Like, oh, it's greasy. I don't want to do it. Like, yeah, sometimes I don't want to get covered in grease, but like most people know by now, I'm third generation doing this. And like my grandfather, he used to be like, look, he's like, and I don't know, y'all might find this funny, some people find it gross, but my grandfather would be like, look, you ever take a crap, wipe yourself, and the toilet paper breaks? He's like, what you do? You wash your hands? That's the same thing you could do with this grease. Wash your hands, now get to work.
Yeah, yeah. Every time you tell that story, I love it, dude. No matter what you do, I mean, there's things about every job people don't like. I mean, grease is just part of it. Dirt's just part of it. I mean, the things I don't like is if you get a cooler, it's been down for like a week, and they haven't cleaned it out. There's food chunks to the bottom of it. Now I'll kind of lose my shit on that because that's just laziness. But
Yeah.
the grease, a lot of times, I mean, I get that you can't always pull something out. Some of the stuff's on wheels, but the wheels are broke. I mean, but some of the stuff's pretty avoidable, and people just don't avoid it. And that's what it gets me is just when it's plain laziness.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Quentin's got a pretty good question for us. He's like, he wants to know, do you have a call that you remember that almost whipped your butt, or the weirdest problem you've ran into?
That's a great question. Hmm. Well,
I
I've
know for
got one recently that it didn't really whoop my butt. It aggravated me more than anything. It was a rationale oven. I had an issue with the LED lights in the door. At least that's what I was thinking it was because if you've worked on those at all, they have a bus cable that goes into a board and it goes out of that board and goes to a board that's on the blower motor. And if there's any kind of communication error in there, it'll do all kinds of craziness. Even if it's with the lights, if the lights are doing
Mhm.
weird stuff, it'll cause it to do craziness. And I got to a point I called tech support. I was like, listen, I've checked just about everything. What next? They're like, well, there's this wiring connector, this like little mulch connector that's like at the base of the hinge on the door, and you got to take the cap off to get up in there and get to it. And you got to pull it out and test it and unplug it and see if that fixes the issue. Well, long story short, they had mounted this oven on a aftermarket set of wheels that were on like a frame, and that frame blocked me from getting that cap off. So I'm sitting here for
Oh,
like 30 minutes trying to pry that stupid plastic cap off. Can't get it off. Can't get it off. And it's just like, okay, so we're gonna come back with a pallet jack and 6x6s and jack this thing up off the frame and have to take it off that way. I mean, that doesn't really stump me. I think like there are a few things that have stumped me in the past. Probably the biggest one was it was my first time going to work on a Chick-fil-A Garland grill, and it was my first time experiencing one of those the ME3 series type grills, except for there's the Chick-fil-A version. I forget the exact model number on a
so must have
GFCI. And
been
those things, when they get wet at all on that platen, they love to trip GFIs. They just, well, good luck finding it. So, and if you know anything about GFCIs, they'll trip at like 1 milliamp. Like it's got to be nothing. You can have
Yeah.
like a 1 mega ohm resistance to ground, and it'll still trip a GFI. And long story short, I spent probably 6 hours hunting down a short, and it was the insulation in the platen was wet, and it was causing the high limits to short out to ground.
So there's a good trick to doing that, and
Disconnect the upper platen harness and
Well-
bypass the high limit.
well, if you're trying to
switches.
dry it out because of GFIs, pull the caps off, but you can't leave this like this, and you got to stand there and guard this thing, but pull the ground wire off the unit and turn it on. It'll dry itself out. Then once you see steam come out and moisture come out, you can put the ground back on, put the caps back on, and it should run.
Yeah.
So that's just a little tip.
And
I mean, you
I'd
can't.
like to reiterate, you can't leave
No,
it.
you
Like,
can't
leave it.
leave that.
Yeah.
Pat said it, but we got people in the audience that may, not hear that part. You can't leave it like that.
You can't even leave the side of it if you do that. Leave it plugged
Right.
in and right there beside it. If you got to go to the restroom, you unplug it. You shut it off. I mean, that's just a tip to dry it out and get it back up and running without. Because if not, dude, you're standing there
With possibly a live case.
Oh yeah. So you want to I mean, this is if you only know the insulation's wet and you're trying to draw that. That's the only thing you want to do. Yeah. And it doesn't take much moisture in there to wreak havoc on that circuit, man.
Mm-hmm.
What I typically do is I disconnect the upper platen harness and bypass the high limit.
And lower it all the way down and just
and
let
lower
it
it all
heat.
the way down and let it heat that way.
Just let it heat. Yeah,
from the
that'll
bottom
do the same thing. But yeah, I've had to do it on startups where they sat containers outside in the cold, and that element was sucking in that moisture. And then the startup, dude, it'd run and it'd run for like 5 minutes. Bam, GFI. You go out there, turn it back on, it'd run for a couple minutes. Bam. And finally, someone's like, "Look, do this, but you got to stand there and babysit this thing. You can't leave it, And this is during construction on a startup, so I've had to do it at some other locations, on the new grills for doing the same thing where they've gotten them wet, and it's no fun. But I mean, it's the fastest way to do it to get out of there.
Sweet, that's a good trick to know.
Yeah, yep. So we got going on. So Mike Reed wants to know new construction or startup and problem solved. I'm not sure what he means by that, but do you guys do a lot of installs there at Red?
We do a lot. There's been like a backlog of installs because I gotta watch how I say this. There's only been one other agency in our area that's been able to do installs for a while, and it feels like they've been kind of unable to fulfill a lot of them. So once we became ASAs for all these big companies, they've handed us a lot of work doing installs, PMs, stuff like that. So we've been doing a ton of Garland installs, a ton of multiplex, like the BIC units. We've been doing a ton of those, just tons of that kind of stuff. Mostly, it's mostly fast food in our area.
Nice.
Ain't nothing wrong with it. It's all got equipment. It all breaks and it all pays. So it's the working conditions kind of suck sometimes. You don't get a break really on fast food, and they dictate when and where you can work on things, sometimes. But I mean, I cut my teeth on fast food before I started, where I work at now. We don't do a ton of fast food, so it's not too bad. But when I started, my customer base was like a guy owned 12 McDonald's. I did all those, some schools, grocery stores. We did like the deli, like the fryers and the ovens, and that's what I cut my teeth on, man. So I learned at McDonald's, so it was rough for a while.
And McDonald's is a fun one.
Them and all their specialty equipment.
It's amazing, like the power McDonald's has over manufacturers, dude. Like they will design equipment, and like they're the only ones that can use it, but that manufacturer has to make it. It's wild. I guess if you're McDonald's, you got a lot of pull and you got a lot of stores, so you can get your way with a lot of stuff.
Yep.
So we got a few guys in here. We got Lee Jesse Sinez in here. He said he learned early the Blodgett hydrovections would trip the GFCI from the VFD switching motor direction. Yeah. There's a lot of ovens that will do that, especially a gas oven will do that a lot of times. The VFD or the blowers on those gas systems will trip those. My son
what's the actual code on GFCIs? Because I know as a rule of thumb, they're required in the kitchen, period. But I was on an online training for a manufacturer with combi ovens, and the guy doing the training was saying that that's not the exact code. I forget what he said the code was, but he said he'll get on the phone with inspectors and argue the code and pull up the actual code in order to not get their combis on GFCI circuits. Do either of y'all know the actual code, or anybody in the chat know the
So
actual code?
it used to be that manufacturers were the ones that made the specification if it needed to be on one or not. And then I think in 2014, could have been 2017, I can't remember. One of those two, I think it was 2017. They required like pretty much all kitchen equipment to be on GFCIs, more or less, if there was any sort of water in or around the unit or grease. It was a whole weird endeavor. I need to check back on that because I really haven't been in my code book since the 2014 code. So, but that was my understanding, is that it changed in like 2017, and that's why all these older restaurants practically don't have GFCIs on grills and stuff like that. And then here recently, we've been seeing a lot more of it.
Yeah, so like I know in the Wendy's stores, like some of the older stores, like they can't put a GFCI breaker in the panels. So they were mounting these things up on the walls, like some little GFI box, and it was causing havoc, wreaking havoc on stuff, man. And I've ran that quite a few times with the Wendy's, the transitions they're doing. So I'm not sure what it is, dude, but I know a lot of it's like local jurisdiction. Like some guys will be cool with it if it's in a kitchen, it's like only one thing plugged in that outlet, or if it's a twist lock, or there's ways around it. But some guys just don't care. I mean, some inspectors are just, it's my way or the highway, and because they have that jurisdiction, and it's like they get off on it. I guess I don't know.
And the NEC contradicts itself in multiple places too. So there'll be like one. I don't know about the GFCI part, but I found articles that contradict other articles, and it's like, okay, so depends on which inspector you get inspect. You know what I mean? It goes over it.
Yeah, that's a wild debate. I mean, and like you said, the code book will contradict itself. It may be one thing in one section, you get to another section, and there's a stipulation where you don't have to do it. And it used to be if it was a twist lock, it's the only thing you could plug into it. It was no big deal. You get away with it. And I've seen places where like that's why a lot of places used to have those pin and sleeve connectors, because you couldn't plug anything else into it. And so I don't know what it is, man. It's wild. It's a headache, but yeah,
it is.
The combi ovens are weird about it, especially they change direction, or something about those little motors. My son was working on like a little roll-in, push-in a warmer. You roll around and it's got this, you slide in the heating thing in the bottom of it. He's like, man, this thing's brand new. It trips GFI as soon as it comes on for heat. He said, I can plug it in, it's fine. As soon as it comes on for heat. And he had it all pulled apart. He's like, element tastes good, it's not short to ground or anything. He's like, but as soon as I turn it on, it trips GFCI. I was like, unhook that blower motor. It had this little cheesy plastic crappy blower motor on there. Unhook the blower motor to stay on. I was like, that motor is just creating a little back, feed, some EMF back feed, and enough to, trip that GFI. I was like, order a new blower motor. I don't get it. I know there used to be a GFCI that was pretty much so worthless, it really wasn't a GFCI anymore. And that's what the manufacturers of equipment they were specing. Hey, we had to use this GFI only. There was a point where some manufacturers were sending out their equipment, like put this one in. But at that point, it really didn't even trip anymore. It just looked like a GFI buttons on the front of it. But I think they quit making that one. So
yeah, I think I was taking a different training the other week, and I think they were saying for GFCI breakers, like a class C, I think is what it is, handles most equipment now. But what most people put in, I think, is what they said was class A, and those are a nightmare for equipment.
It's probably the cheapest ones. It's probably just the cheapest ones they put in, and they got to spend the money for the good ones.
Or the sensitivity range of it,
how many
milliamp range of training.
Yeah, millisiemens or whatever it is. Yeah, Quentin, you're right. It's when they change directions, they create enough EMF to do some wild stuff, man. And the small reaching coolers do the same thing. When they shut off, or if that start relay doesn't drop out, it'll create some backfeed and it'll trip GFIs nonstop. So what else we got over here? EC to Fix says a lot of Fry Masters innovations were stemmed from McDonald's demands. Yeah, McDonald's has designed a lot of stuff, and they'll hold the patent on it for so long, and let someone make it for them, and then the patent runs out, and then McDonald's come out with something new. I never realized McDonald's had the power it did until I started talking to managers about some of the stuff they did. I was like, it's absolutely insane how these restaurants work.
Yeah, I knew nothing about none of that. That's crazy.
Well, I can go on some more. I won't say it on here, but we can talk about some stuff later on. I don't want to get in trouble because it's all hearsay. Who knows if it's true or not? But I don't want it out in the world.
Right.
So, is there anything new that you want to learn in particular, or you want to train on, Gary?
That's a great one. I'm trying to think. I really like share machines. I'd like to go on a good class for share on their espresso machines. I think they're pretty fun to work on, but there seems to be a lot going on that you got to keep track of, and so it'd be nice to get some formal training on one of those.
Yeah, I've never worked on one. I've the only espresso machines I've done was the Frankie one. I've done I did some stuff last year. I can't remember the name. I can't remember now, but it was actually pretty cool because it was like a modular system. It wasn't automated. It wasn't like anything you'd see at like Starbucks. But it was like an automated system. It had a touch screen. You just pushed a button and it made the drink for you. But it was all like modules. So like you had a problem with one section, you could take a new module with you, and you could diagnose it, put your spare module in there, and they could keep using the machine while you change the part, or if you had to order a part, and you come back with their module, put their module back in, and like you
That wasn't Concordia, is it? Is that what it's called, Concordia?
No, I've got some videos out there. I have to look, but it was pretty cool. I mean, you could literally like tear that machine completely down to nothing in like 5 minutes, put it back together. Like you could plot all the different modules and like put it all back together. Like if you had a spare module and you knew what module was broke, you could throw that in there and like take the one back to your shop and rebuild it and bring it back. It was a pretty cool setup.
No, we worked on these Concordia. They're like specialty coffee machines, and I've worked on it a few times because we have one customer that has them in particular. But like I remember, there's a particular issue where they're like, it's gonna either be this module or that module. I'm like, all right, cool. How do I test it? Oh, you can't. I'm like, these are like $2,000 each module. You can't test it. Change one, change the other, or change both, and let's see what happens.
Those are so aggravating, those Concordia machines.
No. Yeah, because I used to do a bunch of the Frankie ones, man, and those things were wild to work on. And it just the problem was we weren't number one for our market, so we were a backup. So like you wouldn't work on them, and then you'd have to work on a bunch of them. Then you wouldn't work on them, and then you work on a bunch of them. It's just inconsistencies made it hard to work on. And so no, this was Eversys. Is what it was. So it's EVERSYS, and they're pretty cool. I've seen a couple in my market, but we haven't worked on them. We never picked them up, so I'm not sure what happened. We actually had the guy come in, and he spent a whole day like with me and another tech, and we like had a unit there. We learned everything about it, broke it down, made coffee, set up recipes. I mean, we did the whole class in like a day, and then I came in and filmed some content on it, and just I'm not sure whatever happened to the program. It just didn't never evolve. So, but yeah, espresso machines are super expensive, so that's cool. Just try to read through some of the comments here. Yeah, it's a super automatic, Quentin, and they are fun and a nightmare. Just depends. Oh, Lee's talking about he said you can go down the Taylor rabbit hole. He's referring to the whole if they clean it or not rabbit hole, and it's broken when it really just needs clean type stuff. I won't get involved in that. I think was it was Jason. He used to do a bunch of Taylor, and he had like the 4-in-1 on all that stuff. Like he knew, like he broke it down when he first. I think the first episode he came on and did. He broke it down.
Yeah, y'all saw that thing with Taylor. Supposedly the government is getting involved because of the ice machines being broke down.
That surprised me. Like I thought like Taylor like put like a Wi-Fi chip in like some of the women's like, no, they're just not clean on the unit's not broke down. They say it was broke down, and like they get because I guess they were getting like ran through the mud about it. Like everyone was blaming Taylor, said their machines were terrible, and it wasn't even their fault. It's like they just weren't cleaning them, and they wouldn't clean them, so they say the machines broke.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And how many times you go into that particular restaurant and they don't want you to fix the fryer because and they're like, we're gonna have to work more. That's why that ice cream machine is down all the time.
Yeah, it's a wild. The stories from McDonald's ice cream machines are the wild stories about
Hey,
rumors
they're not the
about.
only one that uses them.
No, and not everyone else has the problems. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's a good point. McDonald's is the only one that their machine ain't never working. But somehow Taylor's getting in trouble.
It's funny.
Like you said, the power that McDonald's has.
So you're lead tech for that market, correct?
For this area, yes, sir.
So what does that mean? I mean, every company has a lead tech. They all have different roles. They all have different things that come along with it. So at Red, what is the role of a lead tech?
So I end up being on the phone about half the day or more some days, answering phone calls from the other guys, helping them walk through troubleshooting, stuff like that. If there's something that they haven't worked a ton on and they don't know exactly what they're getting themselves into, they'll call me and I'll more or less troubleshoot with them over the phone and walk them through what they're looking for. Uh, I try and stay on top of other small things like if I see something that's being done incorrectly, I try and call them out on it, try and get them to do better, try and get them to correct what's going on, and try and encourage them to do better. Uh, Also, try and work with the other guys to figure out where they're falling behind on certain things and figure out a way to teach them to do better. Like if they're struggling with diagnosing fryer, like let's say a FryMaster ATO issue or an AIF issue, I try and spend my time to explain and work them through, what they're looking for, and I try and look for missed things. Like let's say uh, one of the guys goes and works on a unit and orders a part, and I know for certain that this part should have this other part going in with it just because it's standard procedure to
Mm-hmm.
replace said parts together, because there are certain parts that in the end of the day, if you're replacing this one, you better do this. It's like if someone goes in and works on a FryMaster and goes to replace any of the boards that are in it, you have to do a software update. Otherwise, you're going to have all kinds of issues. If it's a like an LOV fryer with the or
Touch
ATO,
screen and communication. Yeah, the like everything, all the boards that they have the same software. It just acts ridiculous.
it does
So, yeah,
crazy stuff. And
yeah. I've noticed that on Taco Bell pretty bad. Like if like my stores will try putting in their own controller, and like it's not the same software as the other controller, and it will do some wild stuff, man.
yeah.
So that's cool. So you're involved in making sure the guys doing stuff right. So how do the guys react? Are I'm sure. Do you have a guy older than you there? I mean, I would keep bringing it up just because it's rare to see someone in your situation at this age. So I'm all for it. I love it. It's just some of these older guys probably don't dig it.
So we've got in our office 2 guys in the field that are older than me. One guy is mostly experienced in cold side and like the HVAC side of things, the refrigeration side of things. So uh he handles it really well and we work together very well. There are times that I'll run into a refrigeration issue that I'm like, what in the world? I'll bounce something off him, he'll bounce something off me. We do our best here to work as a team and you know work with each other on every issue that we come across. Uh we have another guy. I haven't gotten to work with him much. We hired him like about a week ago. And so I haven't gotten to work with him much. He's a good bit older than me. He's just shy of 40, I think. And but he seems pretty chill and he seems like he's pretty easy to go along with as well. So I haven't had any issues here with that. But back in other fields, like back when I was working in residential and stuff like that, doing electrical, the backlash I would get from people was just insane. I mean, people just hated having a younger guy working with him, working with some 60-year-old guy, dead set in his ways. That if that wire didn't fit in that uh, terminal, he was going to cut some of those strands off and make it fit. Crap like that. The
Yeah,
stuff you shouldn't do, the stuff that burns houses down.
Yeah. That's great. And it sounds like that, Matt and everybody over at Reds has built a pretty good culture, and it seems like everyone is really buying in on it and, wanting to be more and do more. So it seems like, that's a really good place to be right now.
Yeah, we need more companies in this industry to kind of take note of what y'all are doing and what a few other people are doing. As I talk more and more to like independent companies, it seems like that's what's going on, is that teamwork and that culture.
Yeah. And if you don't have teamwork at all, your company's going to slowly fail. I mean, if you don't have people that are confident enough to work with each other and humble enough to work with each other, you're going to have issues. Whether or not, you have a lead that is cocky and arrogant and plays off every mistake as, it is what it is, and oh, oops, and tries to play it off like it doesn't matter, versus a young guy that, can't hear, it's not I can't hear. Having a young guy that makes mistakes and can't learn through them. There seems to be a lot of issues out there that I've heard of where that seems to be the problem. You have a culture of ignorance and arrogance out of the older folk, and the younger folk not being able to get the experience they need because that's the culture that's been created.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point. So, get a couple of comments here. Quentin says he is glad to see people enthusiastic about this industry. We constantly hear about the gloom and doom, and we don't buy into it. People are out there, and we just have to find them and get behind them. Yep, I agree 100%, man. He's making me proud to see some of these younger guys out in this industry, man. Like I said, my son, he's in here, he's killing it. And I tried to get him to get some younger people, his friends involved. Give him a chance to at least check it out or talk about it. So that's our goal, is just to try to highlight and showcase the industry, bring some more attention in. I mean, these guys complain about working 60, 55, 60 hours a week, but yet, they don't want to share information with the younger guys or get younger guys involved. I'm like, you can't have it both ways. If
Yeah,
you want to make
100%.
this, if you don't want to work these hours, you want to, work your 45 hours or whatever it is and go home, well, we're going to need more guys, and you're going to have to share the information. The days of being an old grouchy curmudgeon and not sharing information are behind us.
Word.
Quentin's just all over it tonight. He said, smaller to mid-sized companies are where it's at. Nationwide types cannot keep the level of standards up to the sheer size of themselves. The buying it needs to end. I mean, there's parts to all of it that I can agree with. And, it's, I mean, I work for a big, huge company, and the culture at the top is really good. And I think it is kind of, by the time it gets down to some of the branches, it gets watered down a little bit. And I think that's where the problem is, unfortunately, in some places. So,
Yeah, it's 100% the issue. And I mean, a lot of times people get put in positions that they never should have been in. You know what I mean? And I think
yeah.
that's where a lot of the branch level problems come from.
Yep. So, anything you're looking forward to in the next couple of years at Red or in your career in general?
The company's grown tremendously since I started here. When I started with Red, uh, it was three guys more or less. Well, there was Matt, Jared, Caleb, and I, and we were all working out of a storage unit. And now it's from the four of us to like 20 plus guys, and having three separate offices and covering the entire state versus just barely keeping on. When I started, it was you couldn't count the hours in the day that we were working. It was just nonstop. I mean, there I can recall there was one day I think I worked 26 hours straight, and just doing what we could to get by. We were taking every bit of work that we could get, and now it's cake. It's just getting better and better. Just see what the future holds.
Nice. So Greg Austin wants to know, like, what is Red doing to find guys? I mean, you just out there putting it out there. I mean, I know Matt talked a lot about he always tries to have an apprentice at every branch, like someone new, young, not necessarily to be young, but someone new to the industry trying to learn and develop.
You know, that's the hard part. You find young guys, and the hard thing is finding someone who has enough knowledge to where they're easy to teach versus finding someone who has no knowledge and try and teach them the world. And
Mhm.
the issue I see a lot in this world is to bring someone in to the industry, you almost need someone who's already in the trades, and you can't really find anyone that's like that. You know, it's all like it's that culture of old guys in every single trade. There's hardly any young guys. So I try and tell everybody I know now, you know, go to vocational schools, you know, get the knowledge that you can now. And if you don't want to do it when you get out of the vocational school, all right, if you're in an area that has a VOTAC with high school, it's free. Go take it, you know. And then if you
Yeah.
don't want to do that in the end, you got a license that you're never going to use. So what? You know,
Exactly.
doesn't hurt to have it. And you have knowledge that, you know, might help you. If you're not going to do it in the professional field, you can at least, you know, redo the wiring in your house if you want to.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
what
point.
do you think being on the younger side, right? Because me and Pat, we talk and we have our ideas of how to get younger people into the industry. But you being, I would say, significantly younger than us, what do you think the key is to reaching that next generation and getting them interested?
Uh, so a lot of the issue is everyone young thinks that they're immediately worth something that they're not. And the issue is when they get out in the industry at all, they find out, oh, I'm only worth, you know, 15 an hour or less. I don't want to do this. I can go work at McDonald's for, you know, $12 an hour. Why wouldn't I do that? Um, I think one of the big things is if vocational schools would really start advertising it, if people like you guys would start getting our voice out there, showing people just how it is. I feel like if people could take cameras out and just show people what the work is like, you know, kind of catch their attention to how fun it is. It's not like
Mhm.
sitting in an office every day where you're bored. You know, in high school, I worked as a lifeguard. That was probably the most boring job I've had. You know, just sitting there watching people swim all day. Sure, it was easy, but and it was way easier than this, but I would take this any day over that. Heck, I'd take this day over doing that and getting paid what I'm getting paid now. You know, this is my favorite thing. It's keeps me entertained.
That's a good point. I mean, like I always refer to my son. I mean, just because it's experience close I have, but literally that kid when he applied here, I've only seen him use tools one time, and that was when I made him change his own brakes on his truck. I did one side, made him do the other side, and he literally was pushing on the wrench, had a fist at the ground, and as soon as I was getting ready to say, "Hey, open your hands," in case that slips off, his hand slipped off and bashed his hand right into the concrete, split his knuckle, bleeding all over the place. And that's the only time he ever used a tool before he came to work with me. And I was like, he can't. He's like, I'm gonna apply where you're at. I'm like, man, I don't know if you want to do this. But you know, a year and 6 months later, he's killing it. I mean, so I don't think necessarily they have to have some kind of mechanical background, but they have to be able to want to learn and
Yeah.
have to have that drive. Like you said, you can't just come here and work here 6 months, think you're going to make $30 an hour. That's unrealistic. But I mean, put some time in and to get all training you can and prove your worth, and you can make money.
Oh yeah.
That's the big thing for me is, you know, you have these apprentices that get in your truck and you try and talk to them about something that, you know, you're trying to explain, okay, we're getting ready to go on this call. This is what most likely is wrong. This is how I know that. And the whole time they're kind of trying to blow you off and put their headphones in so you can just listen to their
Yeah.
music on the ride, you know. That's the frustrating thing because you want to be able to teach these guys everything you know. But I think that's the other side of it is there are so many old guys out there that don't want to teach people new stuff. They just want to do it.
Well, we've got guys, man, that older guys, you know, and they've got knowledge, but when they have a guy, it's like they walk up to this piece of equipment, check that valve. I was got power still opening. Okay, we're ordering that valve. I'm like, but you know that because you have years of experience to back it up. But you you just told a guy how to check power to the valve and to replace it. You didn't explain what led you to that valve. So, when I train, I try to, I know it's probably going to be that valve, but I'm going to go to 2 or 3 pieces before that and let's see if they're doing what they're supposed to do to work my way to that valve. So I can kind of give a little backstory of what makes that valve go bad or what that valve does or what else could cause the same symptoms as that valve. And I just think, guys just get caught up and, we have the experience, we know, and they just go there, check that valve. Okay, it's the valve. But you got to tell these guys why. I mean, anybody can just guess at a part and take voltage error. I mean, it's wild.
Well, it's like I had a guy with me today. We went and looked at a Turbo Chef pizza oven, and the store complained that they would put a pizza in it. It'd be up to temp, but once they put the pizza in it, it would drop the temp and not hold temp and not heat the pizza correctly and cook it. And I tried to tell this guy, listen, the first thing we're going to do is check the easiest thing to check, and we're going to take our time, and we're going to work through step by step. And I said it's most likely either the heating element or it's something controlling the heating element, something of the sort. Could be a bad cooling fan, but most likely it's going to be something with that. We get on site and I immediately take the back panel off and I go, okay, we're going to check, we're going to let the oven cool down. We're going to turn it on so it'll try and heat up. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take an amp clamp, which, measures the intensity of the power being used. And we're going to check each of these lines going to this element. Lo and behold, one of the elements isn't drawing any amps. And I said, okay, so what that tells us is this one section of the heating element is not doing any work. So we need to figure out why that is, whether it's we're not getting power to it, whether the element is open and failed, or if it's, the relay is not getting power that controls it. It could be one of any of these things. So I have him, pull the wires off of it and we check resistance, and resistance is good across the element. I was like, so what does that mean? And he's like, it's a good element. It's like, there we go. We go to the next thing, and it's the relay. We realize that we don't have continuity across the output side of the relay. So we take the leads, the coil wires off the relay, the mechanical relay, and we check to see if we've got power there. Lo and behold, we have 24 volts DC versus what we should have. We have 24 volts. That's what the coil calls for. But we still have nothing coming out of that normally open contact on that relay. So I was like, what's wrong? He goes, the relay. And I was like, okay, so what tells you that? And he goes, because we have the power needed to close the relay and it's not closing. We need people to work like that. We need people to actually take their time and, step by step walk people through stuff and explain to them why we're checking what we're checking.
Well, my guy's excuse is, well, we're just too busy for that. I'm like, we have somebody with you for a reason. Take the time and do it right. Or, I mean, because there's a deal. You're still going to be too busy for that when this guy's out on his own. He's calling you and he can't fix anything.
Yeah.
100%.
So, all right, guys. It's been almost an hour. I'm not going to keep you any longer. But I appreciate you coming on. And I appreciate Matt and what he's trying to do for, RED in his area, in this community, in this industry. It seems like they're doing really cool things, and I look forward to seeing what Matt's building and seeing what's the next step for him. And I appreciate him for turning. I'm sorry for introducing us to you and getting you on here and telling your story. It's pretty rare that someone 25 years old is where you're at, lead tech, and doing the things you're doing. That shows a whole lot of growth and potential from you, and a lot of hard work. I mean, you didn't get that from just showing up every day, did you?
No, got it from 16-hour days and 12-hour days, and trying to do my best every single day and make the best of what I can.
Yeah, and that's
the
cool.
common theme. Everybody who comes on and has excelled, it's the same thing. It's putting in the work.
I mean, and it's not just work here. It's taking the time to learn something on your own or do something on your own. It pays off in the long run. It really does. So, what's one thing you'd tell somebody if they're thinking about a trade and they stumble across this video or they stumble across this trade? What's one thing to tell someone about this industry and why they should work here?
It's fun. And not only is it fun, it's different. It's not the same crap, same day, different day. It's different crap, different day.
Yeah, I loved your story because I asked you for a brief introduction and you said the same thing as me. Well, I started off an electrician, but I got bored pulling wire every day or doing this every day, and I didn't want to do that anymore. That's the same thing as me. I went to high school, I took a vocational, came out, and I was an electrician for 5 or 6 years, and it just got to the point where it was like, I can't do this anymore. It's the same thing. I'm still pulling wires, a different house, but it's the same thing over and over and over. So I knew I had to talk to you after that. So, all right, Rich, you got anything else?
Nah, that's it.
All right. Well, Gary, I appreciate you coming on. As always, Rich, thanks for being here, buddy. I guess that's it. Have a good night, everybody.
Y'all have a good one.
Yeah, take it easy.
If you guys would, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the podcast. It really helps us grow and helps us know which direction to move in. Also, if you have any suggestions for guests, please email me at commercialkitchenchronicles@gmail.com. Or if you want to be a guest, email me. Love to have you guys on. Thanks a lot. See you next week.